So this one of the other great panels that I had the pleasure of. You have a good night, Shadow Whippo. Um, Enjoy yourself. Uh, One of the other panels that I had the pleasure of watching and actually really enjoying, and it was I didn't really think it was that that big a deal until I saw the teaser the night before the actual panel, and that was Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront has been a game that's been around since I think since N64, Nintendo 64. First person to third person shooter. They just came out with an updated version of it in 2015 to coincide with the release of Force Awakens, and that came out PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Um, and I thought it was fun. I know these panels were at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando. If you want Star Wars, go to YouTube and type in Star Wars or Disneyland Experience, and you'll get to see all the panels replayed. So yeah, check them out. Uh, so Battlefront was released. Cool concept of bringing up the modern age, the Star Wars shooter and all that kind of stuff. Um, it was great. The multiplayer was up to 40. I think it was like up to 40 people. However, it did kind of fall short on a lot of things. One of which was a solo campaign mode. And when we finally saw the trailer to Battlefront 2, and again, there were, the trailer wasn't the first thing that they showed, but as the members of Dice and EA and a couple of the other gaming developers that are helping make Battlefront 2, they were starting to create the picture of a solo single player campaign mode, a story mode. But this time they decide to take it on a different route. Instead of focusing on the rebels or the resistance or the good guys, they decided to tell a story from the Empire side, which, me being a villains fangirl, uh, I was extremely excited to hear about, and we'll get into that in a little bit. However, we do meet a brand new character, whose name is Eden Vergio, the female commander of Inferno Squad. Now, Lucasfilm and Star Wars has had a huge surge of very strong female-led characters. Started off with Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. Let's get that straight right now. There's always been a strong female lead in Carrie Fisher. However, now it seems to be their thing. Rey in Force Awakens, played by Daisy Ridley, and Jyn Erso, played by Felicity Jones in Rogue One, are, and then you see the characters of Seba and others from Star Wars Rebels. Again, two strong female-led characters coming off the top. And now they introduce another one, Eden Vergio, the commander of Inferno Squad, who is the Empire's version of Special Forces. So, which is just awesome. I mean, from the introduction to the Death Troopers in Rogue One to now there's a Special Forces crew. I mean, the Empire is just sounding cooler and cooler by the minute. And to top it all off, they are going to be canon with the rest of the universe. So, meaning that anytime you hear Inferno Squad, whether it's in any of the new movies coming out or in the Han Solo movie, they might, show off some of that, or they might just stick it to games, comics, and books. There is now a Special Forces in the Empire. And I am super stoked to hear that. Not only because because it's just a, fantastic thing to get more in depth into this sort of empire, or this group of leaders, or a group of militant people. And I know I know I sound like I'm a huge fan of the military, but no, I love the military. However, I love this empire, this galactic regime so much, that it's just so fascinating. Like, if there were history books on the Galactic Empire, I'd probably read all of them. So this, this story is canon, and it will connect Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. So Episode 6 and Episode 7 will now start to get a clear vision of the Empire as it transitions from the Empire to maybe the First Order, and thus bringing us into the events that took place in The Force Awakens. We'll see some new planets. We'll definitely be introduced to new characters and older characters, and all this sort of great stuff. You will be able to play as some of the heroes that deal with the storyline, as they see fit within the story. So Luke Skywalker will be a playable character, even though this is kind of taking place in the Empire, Eyes of the Empire. You might be you will be Luke for a mission or two. You'll play as Kylo Ren, as you get, I guess, closer to that of The Force Awakens. There's a 30-year gap. And yes, we have seen books come out, the Aftermath series, the Bloodline book discussing Senator Leia transitioning to General Leia. So there is material out there that connects the two movies. However, now they're going to try to connect it with a little bit of a more, with a tighter grip and a stronger rope. And that's what they're trying to do with the storyline for Battlefront 2. It looks fantastic. Now the book, the game itself comes out November 17th, 2017. You could pre-order it probably sometime in the summer. Check it out. Maybe check May the 4th on Star Wars Day, or in September when they decide to do their second Star Wars Day and all the products come out. I'm pretty sure that's probably when the prequel codes are going to come. The pre-sale codes are going to come out for it. So, it looks to be interesting. But along with that, we're going to be diving into what Star Wars Battlefront originally wanted to go into, and that is that of multiplayer. Now, the original Battlefront, when it was re-released, its main point, in fact, the only version of the game you could play was multiplayer. And it was different forms of multiplayer. There was King of the Hill, there was, deathmatch, there was kill all the heroes, this, that, there were different modes within the multiplayer. However, there was only multiplayer to play with. So getting that there's a single player, there's still going to be multiplayer. And it got bigger. So now, multiplayer, you could just change out loadouts, but you could only change the skins or the costumes of your characters. So if you had a stormtrooper, you could always just change out into a stormtrooper, and only wear the costumes of the scenes that they were in. And as they were releasing new DLCs or downloadable content, you had Scarif, Rogue skins to choose from. You had, Imperial Scarif, the ships and all that kind of stuff. That is gone. They will now go to a class-based game system. So you can upgrade and customize your character as much as possible. But you can be a character. And there's 4 major classes within it. I think it's like sniper, medic, it's the infantry, and like big guns or something like that. Now the characters' look will change when you go through the eras, and the different planets and stuff. And yes, for those of you who are sticklers for all three eras will be playable. The prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and this new, I don't know, J.J. Abrams trilogy is now all playable. So you can play anyone from Darth Maul to Kylo Ren, Jango Fett to Boba Fett. You can play all those major characters, and you can play in the likes of Kamino, Mustafar, Sullust. You could play in Tatooine, Hoth, any of Coruscant, any of the planets, major planets that were introduced in any of the movies are pretty much fair game. Now, not all of them are going to be fair game. However, we can expect, like they showed us some visuals from Kamino, the planet where the clones were made using Jango Fett's blood. And, it was, it looked beautiful. So that's going to be good. Another change that was interesting was heroes will no longer just be badges that you find in all the maps. They will be playable characters, and they won't be, as they call, ammo sponges, which is you just keep firing at them. And you as an infantry stood no chance going up against Luke Skywalker, because you just sit there and empty clip after clip after clip, and he's still alive enough to come over to you and just chop you once, and you were gone. Gone are those days. Now the heroes will be skins only. They'll be fully customizable and upgradable, and they'll be treated as regular characters. And if I wanted to play a hero and all my friends wanted to be heroes, they can as well, even if we're going up against each other. So we might be in Kamino, for instance, and see 7 Skywalkers going up against 16 Kylo Rens. And I mean the Skywalker from Return of the Jedi, not Skywalker from Force Awakens, Last Jedi. So, it's going to be great to see how people play and how they do all the customizable stuff. More space battles. That's right. Space battles from all three sets of trilogies will be playable. Again, it's on a map-by-map basis. It's up to them which ones they want to release. However, there will be more space battles. And the hero vehicles will, too, be upgradable and customizable. So there's just so much more to the game that will want to bring players back. Like if I have a sniper that is just rocking it, and I just level up, and customize them to be the best sniper in the galaxy, I will want to keep going back and play it. Now, they didn't mention a season pass. In fact, they kind of mentioned against a season pass. They kind of want everyone to just enjoy themselves with the game, and as they release content, you get it. However, I'm sure there's going to be another, sort of, another kind of, another sort of system that they're going to set up where if they do release more maps or more characters, or if they release something that ties into The Last Jedi or the Han Solo movie, there'll be some way that we, the fans, and we, the players, will have to pay for it, or if you get the season pass or whatever they're calling it, you get it for free. So as I mentioned, with this whole solo mission, solo conquest thing, we're introduced to a new band of characters called the Inferno Squad. Now, the Inferno Squad is the Empire Special Forces, and their story and their book, which comes out sometime in July, is all canon. And again, that means that all of any events that they deal with has already been set or have helped set in motion some of the events we've already seen in the movies. So if there's something in the movies that you saw and you sat there, you're like, but wait a minute, how did this, how did this do this? Where did this all come from? Now they're going to have a reason to say that. And, not every answer is going to be brought up. It's like, oh yeah, the Imperial Special Forces Inferno Squad was there. However, a book will be coming out in July which will help give us a better background into Eden and her squad. It looks like they get their own ships that we've never seen because, maybe because they're special forces. I mean, you're not supposed to see them. I mean, there could be a special forces guy behind this wall of TVs right now. I wouldn't know of it. They're so quiet. What? Again, the book will give insight as to how this group, or what this group was all about prior to coming into Return of the Jedi and the game's main storyline, which happens to start as Death Star 2 is being exploded by Lando and the Rebel Alliance. So, and that's what we saw in the trailer. And again, for those of you watching on the live stream, I was going to have the link in there. However, I will have the game trailer linked in the comments section on YouTube, just down below. And it'll be linked in the podcast description as well. So it was a really interesting and a really, it was a great panel. And I think, it really showed that the developers of Star Wars Battlefront, the developers from EA, DICE, and the other companies, they were able to listen to the fans and listen to those who they've hired to give them their 2 cents and really kind of hold off any sort of major issues and address any of the major issues from the first Battlefront that came out 2 years ago, and hopefully deliver on that promise. So we also know from Disney's conference, some of the, and I think at E3 in a couple weeks, which we'll talk about that when it gets closer to it. But EA and DICE and those who are involved with Lucasfilm to come out with more Star Wars games, they're definitely going to have a plethora of Star Wars video games that now will all be canon and can really bring us, the fans of the movies, the books, the comics, of everything, and make us feel as if we are in those things. And Battlefront, really, it was a great introduction into the idea of bringing us, the fans, into the battles. However, it did fall short in some areas. There was a lot of player drop-off. Each with the new DLC that came out, there was a little bit of rise in players coming back, but then there was the quick drop because the maps, although they're great and although they're a lot of fun to play with, it does kind of get, it does get old quick. And nowadays, if it's not too open world enough, it's, it can fall into the trap of just being a quick niche game that people pick up and just say, well, you know what? Star Wars Episode 8 is coming out in a couple weeks. Let me play a little bit of Battlefront to kind of get me in the Star Wars mood. And thankfully, Battlefront 2 will come out 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, will come out pretty much a full month before Episode 8 comes out. So it'll get us all really excited for Episode 8's release, even though we're going to be completely excited for that. And I'll tell you why just in a second.